Howdy. Welcome back to Peregrine Prude. I'm your rambling host, Colby Matthews. Now, today we're going to switch it up just a little bit. Today we're going to look at the timeless treasure, the perennial classic, Vietnam. Now, if you don't recognize this, just classic work of literature, uh, don't feel bad. It's because I wrote it when I was in third grade in 1990 for a school project. Now, at one time, there was a kind of a gold foil certificate here on the cover. Um, I don't know if everybody got one of those, but I like to think that I was one of the special ones that did. But anyways, it fell off over the years. I think it's miraculous that I still have this. I remember that this cover, we made it out of cardboard and adhesive wallpaper. That's what this is. It's like adhesive wallpaper. Anyways, this is going to be a little bit of a glimpse into my strange third grade psyche. So buckle up. As I read this, I will intersperse this video with, I will edit it to have moments of like maybe 5 or 6 second intervals where I put pictures of the pages so that you can see the illustrations that my mom did. So I was the author, but my mom was the illustrator, and she did a very good job, as you'll see in this video. So you'll see me reading the pages, but then I will give silent photos throughout the video of the pages themselves. Vietnam, written April 24th, 1990. Third grade, Mrs. Barnett, Shawswick Elementary. Chapter 1, The Beginning. Once upon a time, there was a group, and the group was called Force 3. There were 4 men in Force 3. Name, TJ. Codename, Buzzer. Honors, 50 medals. Name, Colby. Codename, Hound Dog. Honors, 50 medals. Name, Andrew. Codename, Rad Cat. Honors, 15 medals. Name, Matt. Codename, Wind Off. Honors, 37 medals. These 4 people, by the way, they were, of course, myself, and then the 3 others were some of my best friends at the time. They were in Vietnam, in a little hamlet. Then, right in the sky, they saw parachutes. Sergeant Matthews, Colby's father, yelled, "Get down!" They got M16s and P38s and shot like crazy. And then the sergeant got shot. Colby saw the person who shot him and shot him back. Then they got in a fort and got some grenades. They threw them at the 2 forts. That's where the Russians were. Then TJ got shot. But they patched him up and he lived. Then the Russian sergeant said, "We surrender!" Then the army had a funeral for the sergeant. Now Colby was in charge until March 10th. That's when they got their new sergeant. Weeks and months passed. Finally, there were 3 days until the new sergeant. Just some brief comments on this tumultuous chapter 1. I find it, well, first of all, sergeant is misspelled. It's spelled more like the family name sergeant instead of the actual rank. So somehow that slipped by the editors, whoever they were. What else was kind of... oh yeah, obviously, I mean, Vietnam, it's not historically accurate, of course. We were fighting the Russians in Vietnam. Now, granted, it was a communist versus democracy fight, but as far as I know, there were no actual Russian soldiers on the ground in Vietnam fighting U.S. forces. I don't think that would not have been good. Yeah. But anyways, in my story, the Russians were there. Matter of fact, in my story, nobody encounters a Vietnamese person at all, as you will see. Okay, that's all. Okay, now for chapter 2. Chapter 2, The New Sergeant. Everyone liked Sergeant Rad, except Colby. He was jealous. He thought he should be the new sergeant. Then Sergeant Rad planned an ambush the next day. It was soon the next day. Force 3 got in a helicopter and started off. Then they got there. They hopped out of the helicopter. Then they went into a fort. These details are just, man, they really keep the narrative going, don't they? A guy from the Russian army came over to them and said, "I surrender!" He said he would be a spy for the American side. Then he went back to his fort. Then they got in their helicopter and went back to base. The next day, that same guy came back. We asked his name and he said, Inko. Sounds like a Russian name. He asked Colby his name and he said, Colby. Inko went back to his base. Force 3 was having another ambush. So they went off, and when they got there, the Russians were already prepared. Sounds like the Russians were ambushing them. Anyways, then Inko came over and said, the Russians were having an ambush whenever you leave this time. So they fought a little longer, and then they went back to the base. Chapter 3. The Capture. You'll notice all of these chapter titles, they read like Seinfeld episodes. They all start with the, right? The blah blah, the dang dang, the mama. So, chapter 3. The Capture. Just as Inko said it would be, the Russians were there. They had tanks, cannons, jets, and missiles. Then a Russian guy came over to Colby and grabbed him. That guy told Colby he was a prisoner. They took him back to the Russian base and locked him up in the jail of the Russians. He was scared that they would kill him. Back at his camp, they were planning a search party. they thought Colby was over in the Russian base, but they were not sure. So they were going to the Russian base today. They were going to get Colby out of jail at 12 p.m. and it was already 12 a.m. So they got their weapons ready, and soon it was 12 p.m. A little note on this time frame. It's clear that at 3rd grade I did not realize that 12 p.m. was actually noon and that 12 a.m. was actually midnight. Because I do remember in my brain at least having enough knowledge about a rescue mission should happen at night. So I'm sure that I wanted the rescue mission to happen at night, which would be 12 a.m. And so that means that whenever they started planning, it was probably 12 p.m. or noon. So I did not understand the nuances of the a.m., p.m., and 12 o'clock, how that worked out. And also, plus, 12 hours, that's plenty of time to plan an elaborate rescue mission in fortified enemy territory. Sure. Chapter 4, The Rescue. So Force 3 and Sergeant Rad went to the Russian base, and when they got there, they started fighting with the Russians. Sergeant Rad saw the jailhouse, and he bent down and ran to it. There were 2 guards, but Sergeant Rad conked them out and got the key from the guard and let Colby loose. They ran back to the others and told them to go back to their base, and they all went back. Chapter 5, The Winning. The next day, Sergeant Rad planned an ambush. So they went out, and then Inko came over and said, "I'm going to be on your team. I'm not going to be a spy anymore. Hand me a gun." Then the Russian sergeant said, "I surrender. You win, Vietnam." So, that's the end of Vietnam. Lots of ambushes. Lots of "I surrenders." No Vietnamese, strangely enough. But plenty of Russians and Americans. I've always been fascinated with war, battles, history, weaponry. That's always been my thing as far as I can remember. And so this really fits in well with my personality in that way. And I thought that there was a part about how that mentioned that I now, because I was kind of jealous of Sergeant Rad, because I thought I should be, or my character thought that I should be the new sergeant. I thought there was a bit in the book about me, that mentioned that, I think Sergeant Rad is good now because he rescued me from the Russian prison. He led the assault that rescued me from the Russian prison. So I thought there was a little line about me, saying something. "Oh, you're just fine by me now," like something like that, like a cheesy '80s movie. Like remember at the end of Teen Wolf and at the end of Top Gun and the end of Karate Kid, the antagonist and the protagonist, they come together, and there's like a moment of mutual respect and mutual recognition at the end of all those movies. Like the jerk and the hero, they have a mutual respect and understanding. And I think that having seen all of those movies by 3rd grade, I'm sure that kind of ending was in my mind. And I thought that maybe I did not include that, but in my head I kind of remember that being there. And maybe it could be read between the lines that since Sergeant Rad clearly made in 1990. I'm surprised his name wasn't like Sergeant Tubular or Sergeant, I don't know, whatever. Sergeant Awesome. I still use Awesome. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this rather light and brief Peregrine Prude video today. Vietnam. I would tell you to pick one up for yourself at your local bookstore or on Amazon, but just never got picked up by a publisher. So, alrighty. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. We're going to try to hit it hard again next week with some pretty poignant but heavy material. Looking forward to that. Hopefully you are as well. Alright, Peregrine Prude, out.